Dad? Dad? You in there? Just be out here waiting for you. Hello friends, welcome back to the show. So glad to see you once again. And if you're new here, thank you for stopping by. This is the show where we talk about cartoons that we grew up on in the 90s. And right now we're working through a series of episodes of Superman, the animated series. So if this sounds like something you might enjoy, then hop below and hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and click the thumbs up while you're down there. I know you're going to like it. Because today we're talking about Father's Day, which originally aired on October 3rd, 1997.
Hit the record button and take all this down.
So this episode brings Darkseid back into the fold. I don't have a Darkseid shirt, so I wore a Thanos shirt. Basically the same character, right? Who came out first, Darkseid or Thanos? Let me know in the comment section below if you know the answer. I want to say Darkseid. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But if I had to guess, I would say Darkseid. I don't know. Is there some similarities there? I think there's some similarities. Anyway, this episode marks the return of Darkseid, and he is now starting to form a plot, taking his time to form a plot to destroy Superman. And there's some duality in this episode between Clark Kent's father, Jonathan Kent, and Martha in town, and Kalibak, the son of... I almost said Thanos, the son of Darkseid, trying to please his father. So a little bit of duality in this episode makes it pretty fun. But we'll talk all about that right after our 60-second Brainiac Bomb rundown. I'm going to give you an entire synopsis of the episode in 60 seconds or less, or else this will blow up. See if I can do it. Lois is out for a jog and she sees this giant sphere starting to blast up the place, and she calls the paper and says, hey, you got to get here and see what's going on. And Superman shows up to save the day and hurls this machine, and then we see what's controlling it is Dazab and Darkseid, and Darkseid says, okay, initiate the destruction process, and he does that. And then you hear that Darkseid is planning his attack on Superman and testing him out and seeing what's going to do that. Manheim is there and wants to prove himself, and Darkseid's son, Kalibak, is also there and is saying that, let me go destroy him. And he goes, no, I don't want that to happen. And then, so the Dasab, whatever his name is saying to Kalibak that, hey, if you destroy Superman, you're going to get Darkseid's favor in that. So he goes to Earth and starts attacking the place. Meanwhile, we have Jonathan and Martha Kent are in Metropolis visiting Superman. Wow. I might be getting worse at this. I might be getting worse. So Jonathan and Martha Kent go to lunch with Lois Lane while they're waiting on Clark Kent to finish talking with Perry White. And while they're at the restaurant, Kalibak shows up, starts destroying the place, trying to call out Superman. Superman shows up, they fight. And then finally Superman stops holding back and hits Kalibak and shoots him off really far. And Superman goes there to finish him off. And then Darkseid appears and shoots Superman with the Omega rays. And he goes, soon the Earth will yield to me. And then Darkseid heads back to Apocalypse.
You have failed me.
The very opening of this episode was very exciting. The music and seeing the sphere show up in the park was kind of fun. And it really kind of built this anticipation of what was about to come. And we see Lois Lane showing up there. She must be used to this kind of stuff happening because she very calmly calls the paper and says, hey, there's a story here that we might want to look at. And then Super shows up. So apparently this is just another day in the park for Lois Lane. Literally a day in the park.
I don't know what it is, but it sure doesn't look user-friendly.
Then we go to Apocalypse. I keep wanting to say Acropolis. What is Acropolis? Then we go back to Apocalypse and we see Darkseid, and we're building on this character. Now, I know I was a little hard on when Tools of the Trade, first appearance of Darkseid. If you want to see that episode, you can click up here. I was a little hard on his appearance because the episode itself didn't stand on its own just as an excuse to introduce Darkseid. It brought Manheim to Darkseid and set those things up. I get it. But this one, again, doesn't have a lot of Darkseid, but they're building it. And it adds, honestly, I like the way they did this episode, that he's in it enough, but it's building the anticipation of what's to come, what Darkseid is planning, what he is going to try to do. And it kind of builds his character and fleshes him out a little bit in the sense of the way that he talks to Mannheim and what is the guy's name? I cannot. Desaad? Is that his name? Desaad? Desaad? But the way that Darkseid talks to them, and even I've always enjoyed just the posture of Darkseid. His hands behind his back, just very confident, just very strong in his position. Very similar to the way that I enjoy how Magneto flies, where he just kind of stands there, raises his hands, and floats around. It's very confident, very powerful in that sense. And I think that just that way that they establish Darkseid makes him a very formidable threat. And you don't really get to see much of what he's able to do until the very end of the episode, but we'll talk about that later. But you know that he's really powerful just in his confidence, just in his position, his physical presence in that ship.
I seem to recall telling Kalibak he was not to go to Earth.
And I do like that we kind of throw Mannheim in there, that previously the episode was all about him and him getting taken into Apocalypse, but in this one it is like he's there and he kind of gets knocked around a little bit by Darkseid, and then we really don't hear from him again.
No one questions my judgment, Mr. Mannheim.
And of course we have Kalibak in this episode, spoken by Michael Dorn, which I have to say, Michael Dorn has one of the best voices, one of the coolest voices. If I could change my voice, if I could have anybody's voice, I think first would be Michael Ironside. Well, he's got a cool voice too, but Jeremy Irons, I love his voice, but Michael Dorn has got to be up there. Like, he has just got such a bass, such a gravel, such a strength to his character. And this is the perfect character for him to speak with. He's just got that great resonance to his voice. And it's nothing that he's putting on. It is it's just his voice. So great as Worf, but also fantastic as Kalibak in this episode.
Give me the opportunity to prove myself, sire. Let me destroy Superman for you.
And speaking of voice actors, when they go into the restaurant, the maitre d' at the restaurant, at first I was like, oh my gosh, it's Arnold Waskers there. And so I did a little research, and actually the character more resembles G. Carl Francis, who was in The Laughing Fish in Batman the Animated Series. Again, that episode's up here if you want to watch that, which was voiced by George Dzerda, this guy, George. We'll call him George D, who is the voice of Arnold Waskers and Scarface and Perry White in the series. And so he does this little cameo in there, but I think it's interesting that a lot of his characters look like that. So I just find it funny that I didn't recognize his voice, but I recognized the look of the character. So anyway, it was just a weird epiphany of like all these characters that look the same and they're voiced by the same person. So neat little cameo there in the restaurant.
Yes, sir.
So I like the duality in this, the tie-in in this episode, that they took this opportunity to tell this story about Father's Day, where we have Kalibak trying to please his father, Darkseid, and then we also have Clark Kent's father, Jonathan Kent, and his mother, Martha Kent, in town visiting him. So we have this neat Father's Day thing, and so while they're in town visiting Clark Kent, they get to see also their son, Superman, in action. And it kind of makes this neat little duality. And so we get to see Superman kind of heightened in not only trying to stop this monster from terrorizing the city, but to save his own parents who are now in danger and in threat. Although there's one moment that kind of always bothers me when this happens. I get why they have to do it. But he announces that he's going to save Jonathan, which calls out that he should be stopped. Why do they do that?
Don't move. I'm coming.
But there is a great moment where Martha is standing with Lois watching Superman fighting, and she calls out to Clark. She's not used to having to the secret identity thing, and she calls out to Clark, and Lois has a little confused moment there, which is fun.
Clark, look out! Clark, where?
Then we get this first moment at the end of Darkseid and Superman coming together. And like I said, the episode did a really great job of kind of setting up this anticipation. And I'm glad that there is a little bit of a payoff. Although we don't get to see a big battle, we just get to see a little payoff of Superman and Darkseid coming face to face. And that's a really cool moment and really kind of drew me into that. To here it is. This is what we've been waiting for, building to for the last couple episodes. And the way that they handled that, the way that they executed it, is we got to see Darkseid's son spend the entire episode fighting Superman and not getting an upper hand, all in the attempts of pleasing his father. And then his father's got to come in and save him, and then just blast Superman with his Omega rays, and then drops the mic and leaves. Pretty cool.
That is who I am. And when the time comes, you and this primitive planet will swear allegiance to Darkseid.
So when it comes time to rank this episode, it's good. It is a very solid episode. It has a great story, great setup, great building moments to set up for Darkseid in the future, and serves a great purpose in that. There's a good chunk in the middle that kind of turns into just a big battle, not unlike the main man, but with less jokes. Some of that I could have done without, although it's a good battle, and Michael Dorn is great as Kalibak, and great power struggle there. To me, again, it sort of gets in the way of the story. And that's just me. I know some people probably really enjoy those kind of big action moments, but for me, I find it's the stories that really win out. And again, looking at this as an adult now, when I was a kid, I probably loved just seeing Superman punch things. But now it's, I've matured a bit in my taste of cartoons. So I'm looking for the stories. So for all those reasons, it falls not far down on the list, but at the number 12 spot of my favorite episodes so far. It falls just below Double Dose because I think that Parasite and Livewire are more interesting villains, and that pairing just created its own dynamic so that took the place of a lot of just punching things. But it does beat out Fun and Games because even though Toyman is a great villain, again, I think that episode was still just trying to find its footing, and it's a much lower stakes in that episode versus this one.
But he won't catch me off guard again.
So here's the question. Who's ready to see Darkseid? I know he's coming up in more episodes here, but like me, did this episode help build that anticipation of Darkseid finally coming to face off against Superman? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button. If you made it this far and don't like the video, hit dislike, either way. But if you want to see more content like this, then just hit the subscribe button because we have lots of great episodes coming out on their way. And next up, we have the 3-parter World's Finest, so you don't want to miss that. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Knode. I'll see you soon.